Hello, everyone, and welcome to Those Working Fangirls, where we talk all things nerdy book, TV, movie, pop culture fandoms and how they integrate into our adult lives. I'm Natasha.
And I'm Christine.
And today we're going to be discussing the evolution of books on social media from a viewer's perspective versus the lens as Christine and I are creators and have been watching this and, have we been watching this over the last decade. Yeah, Christine.
Yeah. And to help us break that down today, we've got a special guest, one of our Team Polis Bananas members from the Patreon that's been with us since the early BookTube days, Zena. Zena, can you give us a little introduction of you, what you do, your age, where you're from, who you are, favorite fandoms, all the things,
Absolutely. Hello, I'm Zena. Thank you so much for having me. I'm 22. I'm in my final year of college studying marketing and business law. So almost done here, almost at the finish line. And in terms of fandoms that I love and that have been a part of my life for a really long time, would be Disney. I've loved Disney forever. Obviously Taylor Swift. I don't know who doesn't listen to this podcast who doesn't love Taylor Swift also. Musical theater. I've been a huge musical theater nerd forever. Game of Thrones and The Hunger Games and all things Sarah J. Maas as well have also been huge parts of my life. And I'm originally from San Diego, California. So also a Southern California girly.
Yeah.
Nice.
We met Zena. Okay. I was telling our friends last night, how we met her. 2014 BookTube.
Oh my God.
How old were you? Were you 14?
I think I was younger.
I think you were younger, yeah. Were you 13 or 12? Yeah, and
I think I was probably 12.
You had all my Bookline merch, and it made me so happy. I just remember I was so excited when I saw you.
It was honestly, that is one of those days that people are like, oh, no one's ever met someone that they love and that they really look up to when you're a young kid, and that means so much to you. And I'm like, no, I had that. My parents drove me to VidCon.
That's so and I nice met you guys. They did that.
So nice of them. They remind me all the time. They're like, remember all the places we've driven you to?
Oh,
I know.
They're so amazing.
They're so, it was so sweet of them. They knew how much it meant to me, and so they were lovely to do that. But yes, I remember being like, oh my God, what do I say? I was so young and I was so little, but it's been 10 years, which is
I feel
crazy.
Like you were so eloquent, and we had a full conversation, and then we remembered Zena forever, and then we saw you at everything and hung out, and it was great.
We watched her grow up, guys.
I know.
We watched you grow up.
I know.
Look at you. You're in your last year of college
so
now.
I know. Isn't it crazy? But I feel so lucky that you guys have been around and watched me grow up. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh, I cringe a little bit. But I'm like, it's kind of beautiful at the same time.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna roll into Snap Crackle pop culture news as always. I'll kick it off with some today in Taylor Swift. Well, she was at the playoffs game for the Chiefs yesterday in the cold again in Buffalo, New York, where they were fucking burning her picture.
What?
At the the guys
I didn't see that.
What is it called when they're outside beforehand in the parking lot drinking? Tailgating. Yeah. Dudes had pictures of Taylor Swift on sticks that they were setting on fire. And I was like, this is just such poor sportsmanship. Men cannot handle any sort of excitement around women. Yeah, Shot says burning all the witches even if you aren't one. And that was all over Twitter. It's she isn't even involved in this. She's there to support her boyfriend. Please.
It's what do you want her to do? Not support her boyfriend?
Yeah,
that's
why
what I don't
are
understand.
Men so aggressive? That's so aggressive. But go ahead.
I saw something on Twitter of someone showing a clip of a man just sobbing because the Chiefs won, or maybe the other guys lost, and then they're like, I'm going to reference this clip when anytime when anyone says that women are emotional. are too emotional.
Yeah. Someone had that side by side with the guy that was burning the Taylor Swift picture. Like they cannot handle themselves.
Can't handle emotions.
Yeah. But yeah. His brother was there, Jason Kelsey, and he was supporting him in the box with Taylor Swift, and he had his shirt off and he was drinking and he was screaming very enthusiastically. There's a video of him picking up a little girl with a Taylor Swift sign and bringing her to the window so Taylor can see the sign. So cute.
That's
So he was having a grand old time. Natasha, what do you have in the news for us today?
Okay, so this is a little old, but White Lotus is coming out with its 3rd season. There has been a lot of casting news. There's been so many people casted in the new season, but I'm just going to talk about the people that I know. So first of all, if you've watched White Lotus, Natasha Rothwell from the 1st season, she's the main lady in charge. She's coming back. So she's I think one of the only returning cast members from the 1st season. The biggest one I'm interested in is Jason Isaacs. He is joining the cast. He plays Lucian Malfoy. Yeah, she's the head of the spa. You're right. And she's the one who well, I'm not going to spoil anything.
Yeah. Okay.
That's her. Patrick Schwarzenegger, he was just in the Gen V series. He's also Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. He's going to be in it. Amy Lou Wood, who is from Sex Education, will be in it. Leslie Bibb, Michelle Monaghan, Parker Posey. Yeah. So those are all the people that I know who are going to be in the new season. I'm excited.
I'm pumped.
I feel like we're going to get it
So
next
exciting.
year.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be until the very end of. I don't think we're because they're just casting. So next year probably.
And I think they confirmed, is it Thailand?
Yeah, she says they booked out the 4 seasons there. So
Oh,
perhaps it's Thailand. That's interesting.
exciting.
I'm excited. What do you have for us, Zena?
Little bit of fun news. Over the weekend, Renee Rapp performed on SNL, and Renee Rapp obviously stars as Regina George in the new Mean Girls musical movie. And Rachel McAdams made a fun little cameo on SNL,
Oh,
and she introduced Renee Rapp, which was so cute, a fun little nod. And I thought that was adorable. So, yes.
yeah. Shit, I have to go watch that. I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, I thought that was so sweet.
Rachel hasn't really been involved in the new Mean Girls stuff. I know they did a whole Walmart commercial, and then someone asked her about it, and she's like, "Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to be involved, but they didn't ask." So,
I thought she said she just didn't want to be in it.
Oh,
I saw a whole
Maybe.
different report on that.
all right, maybe you're right, Christine. I think I was pulling that out of my ass, but it was nice that she was finally involved in the rejuvenation of Mean Girls as a musical, as a movie.
The revamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the movie, so I have to do that. I'm behind.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Laura said I heard that she would have done it if she knew all the other cast members were doing it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. They asked her and then they didn't really give her details.
Okay. All right. And the last couple things I have in here are Emily in Paris season 4 has started filming, which I know a lot of people don't like Emily in Paris, but I find it very amusing and fun, and it turns my brain off. So I'm excited for that. We probably won't be seeing the season, I guess, till Christmas when they usually release their seasons because they just started filming. Stranger Things is filming. I think we've seen pictures from that set as well. So things are back up and running, which is exciting. Yay. And I don't know if I've mentioned that I also have a book coming out May 21st, 2024.
Have you mentioned it?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Did you know?
News.
Yeah, so it's coming
I
out in
didn't know.
exactly 4 months as we're recording this. And
Yay.
I cannot believe it. It is a rom-com that follows Ori, who is the main character, she's 23, she's 6 months out of college, she's trying to figure out life post college, and she ends up on a reality show where she is attached via 8 feet of rope to her high school crush. And it's called Attached at the Hip. It's available for pre-order now. The link is in the show notes.
You know, I just realized May is going to be a really great month because your book's going to come out, and also Bridgerton's going to come out that month
Yes.
too.
Yes, it is. It's going to be a crazy month, man. So yeah, if you haven't pre-ordered yet, please think about pre-ordering. It really means a lot to me and my career overall. They use that to judge authors very hard.
Cheyenne asks, are there going to be any special editions?
So Cheyenne, I don't know any right now. I don't think there were enough pre-orders to like justify Barnes and Noble doing a special edition because I haven't heard anything about it. So that's another reason why pre-orders are so expensive. So important. Pre-orders are so important. But you know, there's still time, but I don't know if there's going to be any special editions. I am hoping that there's going to be a way for me to do signed copies to people who don't live in the United States through like an independent bookstore or something, but I don't have news on that either. Everything starts to roll like very like 3 months out. So I'm just like on eggshells to hear like what's going to be happening with the release of the book. Yeah. But I'm very excited. As I've said, I am obsessed with this book, and I'm really excited for all of you to read it. And if you can't pre-order it, requesting it at your local library, super helpful. Adding it to your TBR on Goodreads, super helpful. And those are both like free ways to support the book. Yeah. Sasha has been working on, am I allowed to talk about this? Yeah. Okay. I commissioned Sasha to do profiles of all of the characters, all of the cast for Attached at the Hip. So I'm really excited to like show those so you can like see all the cast and kind of like take bets on who you think are gonna like, you know, get out first and make it to the end and all that stuff. And she's almost done with that. So I'm pumped to start using those in like promotional shit.
I've pre-ordered my copy, so everyone else should as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Zena. Much appreciated.
Me too.
All right. Moving on to what right now? What are you all reading this week? Zena, you want to kick us off? What are you reading this week?
Yeah, I'm rereading House of Sky and Breath, the second book in the Crescent City series, in preparation for House of Flame and Shadow, which comes out, I think, next week, so super soon. I just wanted to be, like, as up to date as possible, because I feel like so much happens in House of Sky and Breath, and I don't remember any of it, because it's one of my least favorite Sarah J. Maas books.
Yeah.
Same.
So, yeah, like it's really down there. And so I was
It's
like,
really down there.
It's in the list. It was just not my favorite.
It's in the dregs.
It's like down by like a Court of Frost and Starlight. Like it's like down over there.
It's so funny because the first one is like at the very tippy top
yes,
of
so
my Sarah J. Maas list.
Yes,
so
it's my second favorite.
Yeah. So it's really a setup novel, and it doesn't have much payoff.
Unfortunately, yes, until like the last like 2 pages. But anyway, so I've been rereading it, and I've been audiobooking it, which has been nice because I just don't listen to the parts that I don't want to, and then I like actively listen to the parts that are like fun and interesting and that I want to remind myself of. So I'm almost done with that. I have like 5 hours left.
Nice. It's really funny too because like in like Silver Flames, like the sexy scenes are so impactful for I feel like the characters and me while I'm reading it. But in CC2, it's just like, so I'm just like, come on.
Yeah. I feel the same.
I'm excited for CC3. I feel like we're gonna bring it back around. I feel like we're going to get the payoff that we felt like we needed at the end of CC2, and I'm excited.
Me too. I plan on devouring it as soon as it comes out.
We are going to record. The plan is to guerrilla record chapter chats as we go so we can start releasing those as soon as we finish releasing our other chapter chats.
Nice. I'm excited.
It's gonna be like the only way for Christine and I to be on it and not have the same thing happen where she didn't fucking read the book for like 2 years.
And it's because I wanted to do a book talk and I didn't have time. And that's just like, we have this outlet now. So for anyone who doesn't know, we've started releasing Chapter Chat as a separate show. It's going to release every Thursday on the feed. So make sure you're following the feed for Those 4 King Fangirls in your favorite podcast recording app. It won't be in the YouTube feed. So it's going to be on the podcast feed. So wherever you listen to podcasts for free, you can follow the feed and it will be in there. All of our past chapter chats for A Court of Thorns and Roses are going to be releasing in 4 separate parts. They're like 4 hour-and-a-half chunks, Natasha.
Yes. Hour and like
then
15 at most.
Yeah. And then we'll be releasing the ACOMAF chapter chats in groups of like 3 to 4 chapters. So it's like about 30 minutes to an hour. And we'll have to finish ACOMAF because we're about halfway through. And then we're going to be releasing our A Court of Blood Dragons. What is it called?
What is it? Xena?
The
House of
Flame
and Shadow.
Shadow.
House
Sorry,
of Flame
I
and
forgot that
Shadow.
one too.
Oh my god. Anyway, so I'm excited to like be recording as we're reading for the first time because there's a lot of excitement there and there's a lot of theorizing possibilities there. All right. Natasha, tell us what you've been reading.
I'm still reading Fire in the Flesh by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Armentrout. Oh, I said it that way. I'm almost done. I almost finished it today, but I didn't. So I have I've been listening to it on Audible, and I got to a part because it was dragging. It was like Crescent City 2. It was just like, come on, get to the point, and then I finally got to like a good part and I'm like, I want the ebook. And so I went to go look for the ebook and I'm like, I don't want to pay for this. And I remembered that there's a library app called Libby. I've never downloaded it. I've never like figured it out, but I got a whole library card. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. And then I looked it up and it wasn't available at my library. I'm like, this is dumb. I just want to be able to access this ebook. Anyways, what I did do was I did request all of Christine's books at my local library as an ebook. So if you guys don't know, you can do that on the Libby app, which I didn't until I got frustrated that I couldn't read the ebook. So there you go.
Very nice. Very nice. I have been still reading Iron Flame and I'm rolling in it now. I feel like maybe this week I'll finally like really make progress and maybe get to the end. So that's exciting. On the movie front, what did y'all watch this week? Xena, you watched Poor Things?
I did watch Poor Things.
Did you like it?
Have you guys seen it?
No, I want to.
No, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, probably one of the most fascinating films I've ever watched. It was amazing, but also it was so bizarre, and I left feeling like disturbed, but also like it had so much to say about life and what it means to be alive that I really appreciated, but it did it in such a like, I don't know, it was a lot. It was
absurdist way.
Yeah, it was very absurd. It was a very sexual movie, which I wasn't prepared for, but sexual in a way that like leaves you feeling like, oh, like icky. Emma Stone, amazing. All the awards that she's getting, totally deserved. I thought it was great. I definitely think it's worth a watch. It really reminded me of all of the films. Like I've taken like a couple film studies courses, and it reminded me a lot of like the old cinema, like the cinematography and the style of it. Like it's so beautiful. Like it's such a beautiful movie. But like the content of it, I think, is a lot to take in. But the payoff is great. Like I understand what they're trying to say with the movie, but it just did it in a way that makes you feel like it's a movie that's trying to show like how people who are naive really get taken advantage of.
Yeah, and it says a lot about also like the way men view women and how they want them
Yes.
to be so young, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little like gross.
A lot of like very much visually showing like the idealization of women through men's eyes and how
Yeah, so that's
uncomfortable
why I
what they
left.
want is.
Yeah, so like it's not a movie where I left feeling like great or empowered. It was one of those where you're like, I enjoyed it, but like now I feel weird.
Okay.
I'm excited to watch it. I
too.
feel like it's a really interesting exploration of those themes.
Yeah.
Natasha, what did you watch this week?
I watched the movie that Christine watched last week. Alex and I watched Killers of the Flower Moon on Apple TV. It's streaming there. And it was a great and terrible film. I just like, I, I had absolutely no idea what the movie was about, and I learned so much about the Osage people, Osage people, and that part was very interesting, but also just terrible of what our country did to them, what these white men did to them. It was very long. I think like I was Alex and I were definitely like entranced for like the 2.5 hours, but once it got to like 2.5 hours, I was like, okay, let's definitely like hurry this along. I want to see what happens and how these people pay for what they did. So yeah, but it was really good. I definitely suggest if you're like into watching like the Academy Award nominations or the nominated movies, definitely watch it. Not only for that, but also like just a very interesting story and to be educated about.
Abby, Lily Gladstone taught film through Crash Course, like John and
What?
Hank's Crash Course.
Really? No way.
What?
She's
Yes!
amazing.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Wow.
I did
How
not
cool.
know that. That's so fucking cool. Wow.
She's so stunning.
She is. She is so good. I loved how sassy she was in that movie. I watched 10 Things I Hate About You last night for the first time. Last week we talked about teen movies, and I thought I had seen it with Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And what I had done is watch She's All That and A Knight's Tale back to back and put them together in my brain.
Wow.
So I'd literally never seen it. It was really fun once I got past the first 20 minutes where her character is so annoying and the kids are all like being obnoxious and annoying. And we got down to business with like her being asked out by Heath Ledger. It's so wild because I haven't seen Heath Ledger in a movie since I think The Dark Knight. Like I haven't watched any of his films since then, and it's weird because I could like see the Joker in some of his movements and stuff, and like some of his facials, and I'm like, whoa, it's just like it's trippy, man, because I don't know, I like my brain like will subconsciously start connecting the characters like they live in the same universe, which they don't. But anyway, it was really fun, and I'll have to watch it again because I watched it in like segments, and I would like to see at least the second half all in one go. Yeah.
Abby says him lighting a cigarette on a Bunsen burner is permanently cemented in my brain. Quite the thing. I forgot.
I watched him do that.
I watched Sleepover too this week.
Oh my god!
It was one I was debating on if I wanted to put it in the list last week, but I had so much fun rewatching that. And there's so many, like Brie Larson's in it, and who else was I? Oh, Steve Carell is in Sleepover, and the guy from American Horror Story, and he played Quicksilver.
Evan Peters.
Evan Peters is in it. Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I just remembered something I had to really quickly touch on that happens in 10 Things I Hate About You. There's this scene where Julia Stiles is trying to help him sneak out of detention, and she totally just like completely hits on her teacher to distract him, and it made me so uncomfortable. She like grabs his face and like touches his bicep, and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't say like stop or like step back or like this is inappropriate. He just goes along with it, and then she fucking flashes him and just backs out of there like nothing has happened. And he doesn't do anything, and he's the soccer coach, but still this is not appropriate behavior, and he says nothing. Like, that teacher is fucked up. This came out in like 2000 or 1999, because that was prom 1999.
Wow.
Which was later than I thought it was. I didn't realize that it was around when I was around, but I was a mere 8-year-old or something when it came out, so I never saw it. All right. TV? Natasha, are you watching the new season of Fargo that they talked about on Armchair as being amazing and I need to watch it?
We are starting from the very beginning.
Supposedly you don't have to watch all the seasons, but
well, yeah, and like it's one of those shows. I've seen Fargo, the original movie, when I was young, too young, and Alex and I really wanted to watch it, and he started playing it, and it's just, I forget, like, I think it is like redeemed. I just hate watching people get away with shit. And that was like, it was like back to back Killers of the Flower Moon and then Fargo, but they don't, but then they do. Anyways, it's just, I don't like being in the minds of like the people who are doing the crimes. Like, that's why I don't like You.
Would I like this?
I think you would like it. Yeah.
Zena, you're watching the morning show?
I'm watching the morning show for the first time. I just finished season 1 because I didn't watch it when it came out. So I finished season 1, which everyone says is the best season.
Yeah.
And then they said it just kind of goes downhill from there.
It goes really quickly downhill.
Which is unfortunate because it's a fun show. But it's very dramatic, like very like exaggerated drama.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm watching it so that way I'm like in the know in it. Like my parents like it. You know, it's one of those shows.
Yeah. It's like,
but I liked the first season.
Yeah, the first season was really good, and it was like trying to be the Newsroom in my opinion, but like it didn't have the weight behind it to be the Newsroom, which I loved. That was an Aaron Sorkin show on HBO. But yeah, season 2 is during COVID, and it like starts off okay, and then it just goes.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon are such powerhouses. So
Yes,
I love their duo. It's great.
I
So
know.
it's unfortunate that the show goes downhill.
Yeah. But that first season, good stuff.
It's really good.
It's a good watch.
It was
All
True
right.
Detective that I was thinking of. So I'm just gonna.
Oh, it's been a while since I heard someone talk about True Detective. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move into our main discussion. But before we do, I want to take a second to thank everybody listening. We are so appreciative of your support. This is still a noob podcast. So everything you do to make the show known, talking to a friend about the show, anything like that is so helpful. Following us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing for free on YouTube, and of course, we have a Patreon, which is why we are able to do the show. We are a viewer-supported show, and over there we have 3 different tiers. At the $5 tier, you get our extra half an hour show every single week called Fangirl Tea Time, where we dive into more personal stuff that's going on, and that's after every single show if you're on the Patreon. And you get access to come to our live recordings so you can be a part of the conversation. When we reference people in the chat, those are our patrons, and it's really fun to have their input live. And we have 2 other tiers, and the Team Polis Bananas tier is the tier that Zena's in. You get to fill out a thing to be on the show. We take on a listener every month, so that's really fun. And we do fangirl bonding sessions at the end of every month over Zoom, which is really fun. Lots of fun perks over there. Definitely check it out. We are now offering a free trial for the Team Jacob tier. So you can try it out for 7 days, see if you like it before you commit. And there's also an annual subscription option where you save 2 months worth of Patreon payments, and you pay for the year, and that's really cool as well.
We also just started the Patreon chat too. That's on the app. So if you have if you're a Patreon member, you can get the app and chat with us. And then we also will have our Charlie's Angels first our movie commentary coming out too as the bonus episode for Team Edward and Up.
Yeah, that is our December bonus episode, and it should be out very soon. We had so much fun watching it the other day. So it's the 1999 or 2000, the original movie with Cameron and Drew and Lucy Liu. That's what we watched. It was great. All right, y'all. Time to dig into our main discussion. It's a doozy. It's the evolution of books and social media from a viewer perspective. And it's such a big topic. I thought we have to start at the very beginning here. And since I'm kind of the ancient age-wise here, I figured I'll start in chronological order here. But I think book blogs were like the OG, like social place to discuss books. But that was back when like the internet was still kind of niche and books were a niche thing on the internet. So like I didn't know about any of them. My first encounters with social media and books were podcasts. And it wasn't podcasts about books in general. It was podcasts that were covering series that I was already obsessed with. And that was like my entry point. So like in 2006, 2007, I was following Pottercast and Mugglecast. And then as Twilight got popular, like 2008, 2009, I was following like Imprint and Twilight series theories. And that's the first place that I was like a viewer in a communal-ish reading space. And I was making like music videos on YouTube at the time, but I wasn't making book videos until 2010. And at that time, I hadn't ever seen someone make a video about books, and I hadn't ever been on a book blog. Like, I was completely out of that loop. But yeah, I mean, Natasha, do you want to talk a little bit about?
I would say that books were the reason why I got on social media. Like when I read Twilight, I had like my friends who were reading it, but like everyone had MySpace at the time. I never got MySpace. I was terrified of it. And then Twitter was a thing. I mean, Facebook was first. But then I got Twitter so that I could talk to people who weren't my friends about the books and like join an online community. And then that's where I found so many people, and I found out about fan sites. So I guess fan sites were like my first blog, because Stephanie Meyer's blog was so big for Twilight fans. And then that's like Twitter is how I found out about fan fiction too. And then like the Twi fandom on Twitter led me to fan fiction, and then that led me to also listening to podcasts in like 2009, 2008 about fan fiction. And like I listened to Christina Lauren's podcast. So Lauren wasn't on it, but Christina was, and she had her very popular fanfic at the time called The Office, which is now Beautiful Bastards. And I interacted. That's how I interacted with people, was through fan fiction and Twitter.
The Twitter, I'm just, as you're talking about this, I got Twitter because the podcasters I was listening to were always talking about Twitter, and I wanted to follow them. And like, and then that's through those podcasts is also like how I learned about other books, and also like why I learned about like the Hillywood show and all those stuff on YouTube. Like it brought me everywhere on social media with those podcasts.
Yes.
It's crazy. Give us what is your first encounter with like book social media?
Yeah, honestly, it was YouTube. It was like the start-ish of BookTube was really my introduction. It was actually it was like when the height of the dystopian young adults like craze era was happening and all of those books were being adapted. And I actually had a friend in school come up to me and she was like, I found these videos. I think you would really like them because we both love to read and we were like reading like Divergent at the time and things like that. And I was like, oh, what are these videos? And so then I found BookTube, I found Christine's channel, shortly after found Natasha's channel, and just started like eating up all of the BookTube videos that I could possibly find. So YouTube was really my introduction, and it was like people that were at the time. I remember a lot of people either in the early stages of their channels or like just starting their channels as well. All of those booktubers that ended up kind of sticking around for a really, really long time and still are really big book content creators on social media.
Before BookTube was like in there, I remember like stumbling across like Elizzy Books and like Cass J Tuck. And like before, I feel like even the dystopian, I mean, I guess it all kind of coincided with like dystopian, like the Hunger Games was happening.
Yeah, like
But
2012.
yeah. And then like there was Tiffios and like Percy Jackson and all that stuff was all happening in the Mortal Instruments. And yeah. And Goodreads was huge. Like everyone was like, add me on Goodreads. Add me on Goodreads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Goodreads didn't start until like I became a booktuber. Like I started making my YouTube channel. I didn't really know about it that way, but yeah, and like I think Cassandra Clare was also like a huge point too. Like not only was I a part of like the Twilight fandom, but it was also Cassandra Clare, and she was on Twitter, and also like so many people after Twilight were like jumping on the Mortal Instruments bandwagon because that movie was coming out in like 2013, which was like a
and
year
she put
after.
it on her blog. Stephanie Meyer
Yeah.
had it on her blog.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. What were you looking for when you like went to these socials? Was it the community, or were you just like looking for someone, like an outlet to hear talk about it? Like I know it wasn't even a thing in my head that there was like I could find a book community. I was just like, I need to hear somebody talk about this. I need to discuss it with someone because no one I know reads. So like that's why the podcast really filled that for me, because I was like, they were doing chapter by chapter and all that stuff.
Zena?
I feel like I was looking to like not feel alone in my love for reading. I mean, I had like a couple close friends growing up that also really liked reading, but like other than that, like at that time too, it wasn't like cool to read still, like at that young age. Like people read, but like to be like reading and to be like it was like nerdy, like, oh, like you were labeled as like a nerdy person, and I guess it was like a neutral term. It wasn't really good or bad, but it was like me and my like two friends were all nerdy and we would read, and we would all read the same books as each other, but I had no other outlet beyond that. And also I think leaning towards social media was a great way to find out about new books and to also see what was trending and to see what was popular and to keep up with the news. And also, as book to movie adaptations were coming out, I loved being a part of, or at least being able to listen to conversations happening around that. Like when a really bad book to movie adaptation would get made and you would hate it, it was great to see everyone else hate it too.
Yeah.
So I feel like being a part of pop culture was really important to me at that time.
Definitely. So as we like moved into the 2010s, we have the socials like Twitter and Instagram really growing in popularity, and it kind of really changed how we see authors. Because I remember growing up, like if there was an author photo, because a lot of times there wasn't in the books that I had. That was the only sense I got of who the author was. And I would like hang on every word of their like 3-sentence bio. Like, oh, they live in California with their husband and their dog. Like that's all I know about them, and that is what I will like visualize in my head for the rest of the time, because that's all I know about this person who wrote the book that I love so much. So like come Twitter and Instagram, all of a sudden you could like talk to these people and access them. And I'm wondering, how did this change the way you like thought about books and interacted with books in general? Did you guys talk to your favorite authors on Twitter? Did you try to? Did it shift the way you thought about things?
I mean, I definitely was interacting with like fanfic authors. Like those were the people that I was following and was like obsessed with. But I think Cassie Clare was the first person, because I had an incident where all my friends were reading The Mortal Instruments and I was handing them out to people left and right. And I gave my signed copy of her book, and I think I got it signed when I was in high school still, like 2011. It was when the fourth one came out, and she did her tour after we thought City of Glass was all done.
City of Fallen Angels, March 2011.
So I went to her signing, and I met her for the first time, and because you couldn't really access like Stephenie Meyer. Like Stephenie Meyer was like,
she's very hermit,
doesn't do signings. But then then Cassie was coming to Orange County, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to be in my hometown. And already devoured her books and loved them and was so obsessed. I think even at that time, they had just cast Lily Collins, or like announced that she was going to play Clary. And, that might have been when Clockwork Princess came out. I can't remember. But I got her book signed, and I just gave it to one of my friends to borrow, and she lost it on one of her vacations.
Oh my God. I remember telling you the story.
Yes. And I was so annoyed and hurt and frustrated. I was like, are you kidding? Like, I was beside myself. And I like ended up tweeting out how angry I was about it. And I like tagged Cassie, and then Cassie responded to me, and I was like, what? And she's like, hey, like, don't stress. Don't get mad at your friend. I remember her emailing me about this, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but we're going to send you a signed copy. Like, don't worry. And that interaction, like, blissful. I was like, bliss. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I actually got to talk to my favorite author. So, I mean, I had so much luck on Twitter getting people to respond to me, because I remember I tweeted Kellen Lutz a bunch. But getting Cassie to respond to me was that was amazing.
I felt like teary hearing that. That's so sweet that she did that. And
That's
I
so
remember
cool.
I sent out emails back when I was like growing my channel, like, because I wanted to do author interviews, and like she responded saying that like if we're ever in the same place, that she would love to do one, which was like huge. But even like every time Cassie like would respond to one of my tweets, or like one time she tweeted out the Clockwork Princess video, and it like made my life. Like she said that like she thinks that I'm Tessa in disguise.
I remember this.
And it was just everything, because she's my favorite author, and like being able to interact on such a casual basis was so mind-boggling after like years of just like you never talk to your favorite author. There's just like a mystery.
Yeah. It truly, like, it was, they were just these beings that created these worlds for us to escape into, and then all of a sudden they're real people and they're talking to us.
Like the author of Harry Potter was never accessible, and like that's what I grew up on, and she was just this big mystery for like my entire life. So yeah, to have like this new world that I was so obsessed with, and like the author was like, hi. I was just like what?
Yeah. And well, and, like,
you know what?
well, I think there's also like, I mean, not to mention the whole Pierce Brown era where I was a creator and that was a whole different interaction in and of itself. But yeah, because Cassie Clare, I was still just a reader at that point.
What about you, Zena?
I think for me, social media and following authors on social media allowed me to know about like events and book signings because I don't know how else like you would know about those events. And
yeah,
so
like through
I
like local
remember,
bookstores maybe or something would post about them. I don't know.
I guess so.
Bulletin boards.
Yeah, bulletin boards. Exactly. So like it wasn't until I started following my favorite authors that I was like, oh my God, like they're doing this book signing here. And so I remember the first book signing I ever went to, it was a Marie Lu book signing, who she's the author of the Legend series, amongst other very popular young adult books. And Champion had just come out and she did a book signing, I think in LA. And I think I had to like beg my mom to take me and my friends to LA, which if people don't know, it's like a 2-hour drive from San Diego without traffic. Three with traffic. Yeah.
Or more.
Or more. 2 is generous. And so my mom said sure and took me and 2 other friends and we went to this book signing and it was so cool. And I just remember being like, oh my God, like that's the author of the Legend series. And of course we go up to get our book signed and my mom goes, yeah, I drove them all the way from San Diego to be here. Like, says that to Marie Lu.
Marie's like, thank you.
Yeah, and she was like, oh my God, like that's a long drive. But she was so sweet. And so I just remember like social media finally allowed me to like go to those events and be a part of those book signings and be in the know. So I think that was the most exciting part about it for me. But I never really tried to interact with authors too much on social media. But I liked being able to like get to know their own social profiles.
Yeah, like how their personality matches up with like how you imagine them from reading the book and such. That was huge.
Exactly.
There was also like Tumblr was a great way to like talk to Cassie. I remember back in the day, you could get like all this behind the scenes. Like she'd post different excerpts and stuff. It was wild how much extra content there was on Tumblr. And I started to, since authors were so accessible and like right there, I started to be afraid to not like books. And I didn't know how to handle that as a youth making videos. Like I just didn't, because you do have this thing where like you don't imagine the authors as people. And I think it's really healthy that we do now. But like as a youth, like no one was there to like talk to me about it. And I was just like, didn't know how to deal with that. And I think with time, like you start to, again, like be more empathetic toward people that you don't know that like worked on these different things and like realize like how to talk about them in a respectful way. But like I started to be afraid. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I don't like I made this video and I didn't like the book and there's the author and I feel mean now and I don't know. I wasn't like, you just start to really learn a lot, I feel like, about being respectful of people's work.
We also had incidents like, you know, where we would go to what was it called? West Fest, YA Fest,
Y'all West?
Yep.
Oh my God. West Fest?
It's been a long time. Yeah, so we would have like, you know, places where we go to Y'all West and be in these back green rooms with authors that we either like loved and admired. And it was a very weird point in, I think, like our careers as creators, just like mingling with people that we read their books that we either loved or we didn't like. But then there was also points in time where we would meet someone who we just connected with just outside of either of us, you know, either they watched our content or they didn't, and we hadn't really read their books yet. like Renee Audier, I met her at Y'all West, and she was just so lovely that I'm like, I need to read your books. And I remember picking up like her books the next month after meeting her. And then we also like they were so accessible to us when we were in that stage of our careers as well. Like we even became friends with a lot of people too, like Adam Silvera as well. And it was such a very weird situation, but also amazing at the same time that we began relationships with people who are still our friends to this day.
Yeah. It was a weird situation in the fact that like we were readers that were like behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And and it was one of those things where like even if I didn't review, because I started, obviously I didn't want to do like negative reviews anymore. But like if I didn't read the book yet, I would start to feel just so guilty even speaking to the person. I'd be like, oh my God, I need to read everyone's book. It's just like I need to know everything and be able to like comment on everyone's book in a positive way so they know that I care.
Yeah.
I care about them and what they've done. But yeah, it was this weird dichotomy where I don't think they knew what to do with us. Like some people were really welcoming, but some people were kind of like weirded out by us being back there because it crossed this line and creators weren't like a thing. So they're like, why are these 20 somethings who don't have any books back here with access to us?
But you guys did so much for the industry. I mean, like, it was insane in terms of like marketing and in terms of what became popular and what was a part of the conversation. And so I think the authors that realized that really benefited from it.
Yeah, for sure. Like the authors I think that were in the know were like very welcoming and like cool. And then there was just like, but there wasn't, it's so slow. Like publishing is so slow to understand technology and like what's happening there. And it's wild. This is a big jump here, but like it's wild. There was this viral tweet. You guys probably saw it of like, if there was book talk in the 2010s and like, and it was this end cap at a bookstore that had all of the books that like I did book talks for back in like 2010, 2011. And it was just like, if there was book talk, and everyone was retweeting it being like, you clearly weren't on booktube, or like you clearly weren't watching Poland Bananas books, and like like it's very clear that you weren't on YouTube in that time, because it was booktube. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The fact that it's just like people don't even register that it existed at all at this point is bonkers to me, because it was like this step. So like blogging was so niche and booktube was such a huge step in the mainstream direction for like books as a fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was reaching exponentially more people, and then that's what TikTok has done again. But to think that like it's so much bigger that people don't even recognize that there was something before it is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I know everyone has like these feelings about it too, because obviously we were there, and I think like BookTube was, I think, for the reader audience, as we were shifting out of this era of Harry Potter, Twilight, like Divergent, Hunger Games, and all of these huge YA book to movie adaptations, that people were like, how are these books becoming so popular? And it was because our community of readers, we were using social media to get the word out about these books, because like Twilight truly changed the game, I think, in like the reading community, especially for like younger audiences. But it also, I mean, it affected everyone. From I knew people age 60 years old who were loving and reading Twilight at that time too. I mean, we've talked about this before, like on our interview with Christina Lauren, but people just wanted more, and it came at a time when social media started, and that we could see the impact of it, because, you know, the first thing that started fandom was Star Trek, but then Twilight came when social media was just starting to become a craze, and like there were so many people who were learning about it and wanting to read it, and then like pushing to the next thing. And that's, like, Christine, why you started your channel, was because you're like Twilight, want to read something else that's just as similar. So
that's non-boring.
That's non-boring
and awesome.
Yeah,
to use my own words.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it drove, there's these waves that completely changed the game, and Twilight was a huge one. And then of course, yeah, like you said, like BookTube was like the readers finding each other. I think there was also a lot of people that might have found reading through BookTube though, in general, because you stumble across a creator that you relate to and you find a book that opens up reading for you. But TikTok was like just so many more people, such a big explosion. The wave that I think prompted that was the pandemic, because like everyone was just in their house and like
bored,
had time to open up the gates to reading. All right, so should we talk about a couple of the negative side effects during this time? We kind of touched on some of them. Do you guys want to touch on what you have here, or no?
Up here. Yeah, I mean, I think like the negative side effects of social media impacting readers' lives is, one, we had access to authors. In a sense, this opened up authors to I think more intense criticism in their inboxes than just getting a bad review.
Like personal
attacks,
criticism. Yeah.
And it also, like in the sense of like Colleen Hoover, how she has been attacked on several occasions, which, you know, led her to opening up more about her personal life and making video responses. And that's just like one big author who was obviously affected by this, but also like getting to know the author and allowing them a platform for sharing some of their viewpoints that we are not probably going to discuss who it is, but we all know who we're talking about, discuss their viewpoints that are very harmful to others, and being able to separate. Zena, I'm taking your piece right here, but being able to separate the author from their work, that social media
gets harder.
Didn't allow us to really do that, because people were told to get on social media to promote their work, or maybe they just wanted to be on social media. Like every publisher probably wanted their author on social media.
Yeah, there's good and there's bad. And go ahead, Christina.
Well, I was just gonna say, it's like should we separate them, right? Because it's like, I feel like you can make an argument either way. It's like they should be separated, because a work of fiction can stand alone. And also, I understand that argument, especially when it's like TV shows or films, because there's so many other people involved, like in those projects, that one person does not represent a project alone. But I think it's really hard with authors, because authors, I think even works of fiction can stand alone from an author, but they write that they write that work, and it is personal to them. And so when you see that author on social media, to what extent can you separate it, or should you? And I think that's like an ongoing conversation and debate that people continue to have, and one that even like I'm not sure, like can I read someone's work and not think about who wrote it?
Yeah, I think it also has a lot to do with like when you read it and how you associate it too, because so many people read that author's work before they had any idea who that person was and have no association with that work and them. But now it's like impossible. Like now there's a completely different relationship with that author because of the platform that they utilize. And it's much, much harder. But like in my mind, they exist so separately because I read that it's like a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old and like had my own completely different world. And I think, you know, so many authors of like past classics are extremely problematic, but like we're able to separate them now because they're gone and the work remains and we're not hearing their 2 cents. We're just hearing like that story that profoundly like made a difference in the pop culture in a way that is kind of separate from whatever, you know, whatever problematic shit they were spewing. And so like, and people just like, I guess just like let it go, I feel like, because no one talks about those authors really as being problematic. We just talk about the fiction. They teach it in classes.
I think because there wasn't a platform for them to, you know,
Spout about it.
Yeah. They're
But I'm sure they did spew it in like public forums, maybe when they were like, whatever, doing any events or anything. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christy says she talks about it in the classroom. My teachers never talked about it. I guess like now people are more aware.
Christy says I straight up tell my kids all the gross shit authors did. Oh.
But yeah, when we were in high school, Christine, they didn't do that. Yeah, they didn't do that with all these like old white men that were like horrible in lots of different ways. Never discussed.
Do you think a bad side effect of social media is that now there's like an overabundance or need and want of books? Because I remember when BookTube first started, it was like there were so many new books that we all wanted to read because there was just so many people talking about them and the knowledge of it. Like I guess the internet in itself opened up a vast amount of knowledge for people. You know, that's just generalization of the internet. Like it just opened up knowledge for everyone to learn more. But like with social media, yeah, would you say that's like a bad side effect that there were so many more books?
No, I think that's only a positive. I mean, like that's more business for more people who are like writing their stories and more accessible. Those stories are more easily found by the people who need them. And like it brought so much more diversity into the book world because it brought so much more awareness to like who was writing these stories and who like what different niches were in each story. You know what I mean? Like, who was being represented and all these different, just like pockets of humanity that we had never been, that like publishing companies weren't taking chances on them because they didn't know there was an audience. And people being able to isolate those and tell an audience about them, and then other people being able to find them has opened up so many doors for so many new authors. So I think that's only a good thing. I mean, for the consumer, of course, we were buying lots of stuff that maybe we weren't being able to read, but we were supporting authors trying to fulfill their dreams of being writers and telling their stories. And I love that. I don't have any regrets there.
Yeah. I don't know if I have. I think I definitely felt pressure to like keep up with like all the hyped books and trying to find the books that I truly loved, because essentially I just wanted to read the Twilight romance in every different type of genre that I could get. I was always chasing that feeling.
Yeah, well, as creators, there was like this added pressure to be the guru distributor of every type of book to whoever wanted some type of book. So you wanted to like have all this knowledge, but like if you separate it as like a viewer, it's kind of like you're picking and choosing, right? Like what you want to read based off of what the creator is saying. Zena, how do you feel
Yeah,
here?
I mean, I feel like you could read whatever you wanted, and then there was somebody out there that was making content related to that thing that you were looking for content for. Probably. Like, it was really rare that you would read something that nobody has talked about yet online. But I think at the same time, though, when you had creators like, for example, like, I think, for example, like Christine's book talks, like every time you would make a book talk, I hated having to leave to not be spoiled. And so I was like, oh my gosh, if I read all of the books that Christine reads, then I can watch all the videos to the end, right? And so then, but also it was like these same books would pop up in everybody's book hauls and everyone's TBRs and wrap up videos. And it's like, I want to understand what they're talking about, like, because you reach a point, I think, where you can only be recommended so many books and decide. You're like, I want to feel involved in the conversation, and those books came to the forefront. And so then I felt, I think I felt probably like a very fraction of the rush that you both felt to read those books that were in the conversation. It wasn't until a few years later I finally was like, I'm just gonna read what I want.
Yeah. And I, like, at that time, like, I wanted to make the conversation. So I was like, what are people not talking about? Because I want to talk about it. Like, because it was so overwhelming to try to keep up with what other people were doing. So I was like, I'm going to make my own. And like, what am I going to love that I can make the conversation about? And there was like all this pressure, like, okay, hopefully this one's going to be really good that I'm picking.
That's how I felt. That's how I felt about like Red Rising and Pierce. Like I was like, yes, I finally found a niche that no one else has touched.
Well, yeah, I mean, because of you, I
like
read
you have to
Red
carve
Rising.
out this space for yourself.
I received the funniest text from a friend actually last week, and she was like, oh my gosh, have any of you read this book called, like, she called it something else. She called it like Red Wave or something. And she was like, I've heard it's kind of good. And then she was like, oh wait, sorry, it's called Red Rising. And I went, I read that like 7 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, like, BookTube in a way was like one huge book club because, like you said, like the same ones would start cropping up because we were like a close-knit community. So like a lot of us were friends and a lot of us wanted to be able to talk to our friends about like what we were reading. So like it created this like massive bubble where like in every pocket of the community, these books were popping up. Which was like really nice in a way because we were all had the same references and understood. It made it like such a communal experience in every way, which was really beautiful. So like let's talk a little bit more about like the age of BookTube and how like that social media really changed the way we thought about books, because now we're like meeting up with not just like the authors, but like the people who are reading it. We're meeting up with readers in person at like different events and stuff. And I mean, we're kind of talking about it now. Like, how did that affect how you read? Like, we were reading what the readers wanted us to read. Like, I started reading what like everyone in my comments was telling me to read, or like what our BookTube friends were reading. What about y'all?
Zena, do you want to go?
I think for me, what started happening was like I started reading a lot more, and I think I started like putting pressure on myself to read more so I can keep up with the conversation. And I bought so many books. I would buy one book at a time, and then once like everyone was reading the same books on BookTube, and it felt like people were reading so fast and new books were becoming a part of the conversation so quickly. Exactly. I had so many unread books on my shelf that became like the majority of my bookshelf. It was kind of ridiculous. Like I was spending all this money on these books that I never read. And when I finally moved from that room, I gave away so many books that I never picked up that were like big on BookTube. And that was why I bought them. And so I think it was just like this reading more. But also I found so many of my favorite books through that process. So again, like I don't have any regrets from that phase of my life either. But then I do think eventually it led to reader burnout.
Yeah.
Because then when I got a little bit older, I had like this reading burnout
You have to take a break.
from that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. Like hearing you say you used to buy one book, like, yeah, I would get one book at a time. I wouldn't get another one till I finished the book. And I remember when we were like just starting up Booksplosion and Kat was like, Christine, you should do a book haul. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I don't ever have that many books. Like, and so like, I literally had to go out with the intention of doing a book haul. And be like, I guess I'm gonna buy 5 books. This feels so against like everything I stand for as a human. I'm not gonna be able to read all of these in time to talk about them.
I remember, I think you were like one of the last creators to make a book haul.
Yeah, I was. I resisted a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think this affected me in that I transitioned from like the Twilight era to the reading era, like where I had all these friends I made going to conventions for Twilight specifically. And then I found all these new friends who read all these amazing books that I also read that I wanted to read. And I'll never forget that first video of Christine's that I saw of her talking about how she pronounced different names like Carly Seal.
Carsley.
I called her Carly Seal. And then like, how did you pronounce PETA? Because I also Petra. And I
oh my
also
God,
pronounced it as
Petra.
Petra.
I added an R.
I was just like, she's so funny, and I did the same thing too. Like, what? Yeah, I think finding that community was so helpful to me to even growing as a young adult as well.
The side effect you were talking about before, about there being so many books, it's turned the book community into a space a lot like the streamers, because there's so much to watch that it's really hard to find something unless someone tells you. So you have to like find someone you trust basically who's going to tell you what to read, or else you get lost in the overwhelmingness of there being so many different titles, which brings us to the next era after after the start of BookTube, when authors started getting involved in like influencers, creators, socials before they got their own. So like author interviews start to be a thing on YouTube. And now you get to see them talk and be in conversation with these creators. How did that shift perception? I feel like it only helped people spread the news of their book, right?
Definitely. I mean, I think for me, like seeing authors on BookTube, it was so cool. It was like, oh my God, now they're in and they're a part of this world and they're embracing this community of how readers want to come together and talk about books. And so I thought that was so cool. And I just remember, I think when you interviewed Alexandra Bracken, I was like, oh, it made me even more excited about her books, and it made me want to support her even more. And so I remember feeling that way at the time. But then in hindsight too, I think it's so interesting and so fascinating to think about it as what a wonderful marketing tactic it was for them. And that doesn't mean that was like their sole intention. But I'm also, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if you guys got paid for all of those collaborations that you did with those authors.
No,
and
go ahead.
They really benefited.
Yeah. I mean, I got paid at the tail end. They started, sometimes they would pay me, and that would be really nice when they did. But in the beginning, it was like you get the honor of interviewing them. And like, of course, I was honored as fuck. I love these books. But then there would come books, like then there would come like the fourth or third thing that you do, and it's like it is a lot of work, and I feel like you start to feel like you're being taken advantage of, because you are putting up things that a lot more people are seeing than if they didn't have your platform to bounce off of. and you're putting in hours and hours and hours editing and reading the books and all that stuff. So people like at the very tail end, I feel like, of the BookTube era, there were instances where like I was hired to do an author interview, and that was great because I felt like, and you just feel like more appreciated and you're more willing to put in the work. But in the beginning, like I would do whatever forever for free. And yeah, I feel like I did tell the story. Like there was one instance where like I was asked to do an interview and I was like, I would love to, but like I don't live in that city, so I would need to fly there and I would need to be paid for this. And then they didn't email back.
I think also, like, because we had mentioned beforehand, the publishing world is very, very old, and this was a form of like PR. And a lot of the times PR, they hired out a journalist, and journalists were covered by a company that paid for everything because that was a part of their job. So, but still, like, if we think about it, journalists, you know, if they were ever sent to, let's say, like a movie set, not only would the studio pay for them to be there, they would also like give them gifts and opportunities and experiences that were in a form of compensation while they were also getting paid as well. And us as creators, they saw us as press, and we didn't have that behind us at all. We were a new form of press, I guess,
and we were all very young, so it was easy to take advantage.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for all the opportunities that those things afforded me, but it was like when it came around again and again and again that it started to be like, okay guys, when are you gonna realize that? I mean, they did realize they were adults, they knew. That's why they kept coming back.
I remember something like so simple. I got really annoyed at it. I think I talked about The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and I asked the publisher for an arc of her second book, and they wouldn't give it to me. And I was like, what? I'm like, all I'm asking here is for a free book so I can actually talk about it and maybe sell more books of yours. And I had to like go to Twitter and be like, hey, how many people have you guys have you read The Hating Game because of me? And I tagged Sally Thorne in it. And yeah, I was being a Pisces and I wanted validation. And Sally was like, oh my God, no, like we're gonna send you an arc. Wait, what? It was like such a simple thing. I'm like, why did you tell me no? I'm still very confusing, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not the authors. I understand, like the publishing industry is slow, like you guys said. But it's crazy because I know, like, because of BookTube, I picked up so many books that I never otherwise would have picked up. And I know the same is true for thousands of other people that were watching those videos. And so I just find it really interesting for how long they were willing to kind of string that along.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So the next kind of big shift before we got to book talk was from long form reviews to more reading vlogs. And I think this is setting us up for the kind of content that we do get on book talk in terms of like, it's not very spoilery most of the time. It's like a tease about the book rather than what the book actually is about. And now we kind of go to podcasts for that sort of long form discussion content. And TikTok is where we like get the idea. Like TikTok tells us what to read, and then we find our own outlets to discuss it long form. And the reading vlog shift, why do we think that started to happen? Was it just like burnout? We need different kinds of content. Was it like really the algorithm? What do you guys think?
I think that it's an oversaturation of the same type of content. And I think audiences grow and audiences change, and content is naturally going to change with those audiences. I think what we see now with book talk is that happening at like the most rapid pace ever. But at the time, I think reading vlogs were like a natural evolution of something different, and of also just like a new type of content that probably people were craving, because I think there were all these trends on BookTube, and eventually those trends were going to shift. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think they manifested into vlogs. I was someone who didn't really enjoy reading vlogs all that much. Like, personally, I know that they became really popular, but for some reason I was like, I want to hear the person's thoughts once they've finished the book. Because by the time I would watch a reading vlog, I would have finished the book.
Yeah.
And so then I was just like confused. I felt like their thoughts couldn't be as well thought out and like structured and presented.
Yeah.
But that was just me.
Yeah. It wasn't just you. We all know. I mean, we don't. Laura is saying Christine's I hate reading vlogs to here's my first reading vlog 2-day extravaganza was legendary.
Yeah.
And like, the thing is, I started making videos on YouTube because I wanted to hear people's thoughts after the book. So like, it was so counterintuitive to me to make a reading vlog. And like, of course, I ended up having a lot of fun doing it. And I see now with time and perspective, like, that I know the way that I like to make a reading vlog, and it's like reacting in real time to what's happening in the book. I don't like watching people read, because some people do like that, like those lifestyle videos, but that's just not why I'm on YouTube. That's not why I'm watching things. I want to hear like people's thoughts. I don't want to watch people live. Like I'll watch that on Survivor. But it was I forget where I was going with this, but yeah, like for a long time I was like, I hate this trend and I will not cave, and then I finally did in like the trolliest way possible. But like, I miss doing long form reviews and knowing that like people are gonna watch them, like, because now it's like I don't know if I want to put in 6 hours for it to flop. Natasha, what were you gonna say?
I think also this was like the first instance where the trends were changing without us changing them, and it was like a new era of people coming in and bringing something new that they maybe thought was lacking in the space. And we because this is the reading vlog started when I started my job, and I was backing out of BookTube pretty quickly, and I think like it's so interesting how it took so long for the trends to change, like years, and then now all of a sudden they're changing very rapidly all the time, but there's still What, Christine?
No, I was just going to say the reading vlogs did come at a time where there was a significant change in the algorithm, and it was the longer that you watch, the more YouTube promotes the video. And it really supported doing longer form content. And those reading vlogs were sometimes like 45 minutes, an hour, and we started really shifting the way our content is to make it longer, because the standard time was like 15 minutes tops, 20 minutes for a long book haul or an extra long book talk. Like, you see my book talks go from like 10 minutes tops to like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because Bellamy, quiet, please. And you see people's vlogs go from like 15 minutes to hours. It's like a huge shift in the platform overall to like really supporting very long content.
I feel like that's what TikTok is trying to do right now, and everyone's just really mad at the algorithm, and because it's not working for them at the moment. And I feel like that's what we
on TikTok.
Yeah,
but the thing on TikTok is like, it's still, when my video is longer than 2 minutes, it still does worse than when the video is like 30 seconds.
Yeah, TikTok is just this is a whole discussion, but they're trying to make long form content work, and it's not going to work. Okay, there's another app for that. It's called YouTube.
YouTube.
You have trained too many people to swipe. This ain't gonna happen. TikTok, calm down.
Yeah. All right. So this kind of naturally goes into our next topic, which is like genre popularity shifts. And we really saw like, yeah, vampires in like the 2006, and then would shift to urban fantasy around 2008, dystopian 2010, contemporary 2013, and now we're like really in our adult rom-com era. And it might be shifting. Like romantasy is coming into its own now in 2023. Yep. Mm-hmm. So 2024. It's 2024. Oh my god. So like, why do we think that these happened when they happened? Do you feel like these different eras really applied to you in your reading, or were you just like in your own, like, I read what I want bubble? Because I definitely felt all of these shifts very hard.
I think this goes back to my Twilight theory. Like, this is just really shows like the Twilight girlies growing up and how we were all chasing and looking to social media to guide us to the next like amazing story. And it was like, I think because Twilight blew up the YA section, and that's why the section is so huge and successful now. It also blew up the new adult. Like, new adult had to be created because fanfic writers were publishing their stories. And then and I think, like, for me personally, social media made me aware of tropes and made me aware of like which tropes I really loved. Like the hate to love. I had no idea what that was until someone commented on one of my videos and told me about that. And now, like, we were chasing tropes within certain genres that we knew we were going to find there. And I think that's what, like, Twilight kind of just set off this huge, like, explosion in the publishing world. And yeah, Zita, what do you think?
I actually find this so fascinating. I think this is probably like the most fascinating aspect to me of like books and social media is like the genre popularity aspect of it, because there's always been a popular genre, as we've talked about books online. But I think it's such a huge reflection of the readers and who's reading. Not necessarily that each time there's been a genre shift, the readers have completely changed. I don't think that's true, but I think it is the same readers, but they're changing, and their priorities and what they're looking for in their fiction is changing. And the characters that they're looking for to relate to is changing. Like, thinking about, like, if we're looking towards like the dystopian era, you have these like powerful young women at the forefront that are completely like changing corrupt governments and putting in democratic institutions and like changing the world. And I think that was like because I think young women basically obviously like run the economy at this point, and young women run so much of pop culture. And so I think that's what young women wanted at that time. It's like, how can we feel empowered? And we look to those characters. And then I think slowly there became more of like, well, let's embrace our femininity at the same time. And we're seeing more of that now. And we see that with the contemporary kind of era. And I think now with the romantasy era, I think women are much more open and confident in their sexuality and aren't as ashamed of romance as a genre, because I feel like it's like, oh, I read romance. That's how it used to feel. But I think now it's like, no, I read romance and people are proud of it and it's popular, and we're not making those like covers that have to like cover up what we're reading. And I think romance authors are so much more popular and so much more proud too. It's always been a best-selling genre, but I feel like now we're saying it.
Yeah, and I think fantasy authors are less afraid to put those romantic things that they love in their books, and people in general are less afraid to be like reading fantasy. Because I know, like, when people ask me what I like to read and I said fantasy, they'd be like, oh. And now I feel like that stigma is kind of waning. You know, we're getting to a point where we're open for everything, and there's less nerdy things and more just like, oh, we love things, instead of shitting on them because they're for losers or whatever the hell you want to say about fantasy. Like, growing up, my aunts, when they asked me what I was reading, they're like, oh, you like fantasy, like the way that they would say it. so condescending.
I think because fantasy was such a male-driven genre for so long, and so was sci-fi. I mean, it started with Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and now, you know, we are reclaiming it as our own. Like, it's so fun to see so many people reading ACOTAR, and it's because we've reclaimed the genre for women, and because we were so scared of it.
I really
for
feel
so
like
long.
Sarah did that with her Throne of Glass books, and I remember Pierce saying, like, who do you think is the next big thing in fantasy, back like when we went to film something with him in like 2016, and I was like, Sarah J. Maas, and he's like, oh, who's that? And I was telling him about Throne of Glass, knowing that like he's probably never going to read these because they're like too like female driven. But like it really was so exciting for me to be reading a fantasy that, like, a full-blown fantasy where there were so many romantic relationships being at the forefront of the plot. I loved that.
Because people didn't realize that, like, until I really think until Twilight, like, you could have a fun, like, urban fantasy, like, gothic type of female driven story, and have it be a romance. And like, yes, I'm sure so many people, you know, we had to reread Pride and Prejudice and all of these other like gothic, well, Pride and Prejudice is not gothic romance, like Charlotte Bronte and all of those, to kind of maybe even feel a sense of those feelings. And then we had romance books, but I don't think it was until Twilight that we actually thought that this was capable and possible.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize like how smart fantasy is. Like, I think people sometimes discredit it because they don't realize the genre.
Yeah.
And I think fantasy is like, yes, it doesn't take place in our world, but it's actually saying so much about the world that we live in. And the characters are supposed to represent us. And like, I just like, it's representing us in a way though that like we don't immediately recognize. And if you analyze it and you look at it, there's so much to see. Like, I think Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings are great examples of that. And I think Sarah J. Maas is a great example of it in a way that is more relatable to women, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's always so frustrating to me, that aspect of people being like, well, it's not in the real world. It's like, literally, this reflects our world. This is all based on things that you relate to. Like, just look a little deeper. Like, it's like they just think so surface level about it, so shallow about what it is, that they can't even understand that it goes so much deeper than that. It's very frustrating.
I think I mean, Star Trek was made fun of for so long, like Trekkies were made fun of for so long, but it was really, even though there's a lot of issues within that because it's, you know, written by men, on, you know, lots of male gaze over there, but still, like, Star Trek was able to tell a story about how you need to be inclusive of other people and in your own world, and it was really a story about racism. Okay.
All right. Okay, so we're going to move into, I think, our last topic here. And it's like the overall impact that BookTube versus BookTok has had on us as readers through the years. And Zena, do you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, I think Natasha was saying something about this a little bit earlier, but I think BookTube was a space for readers to find community. And I think, Christine, you're right too, in the sense that I do think a lot of people found reading because of BookTube. So I don't want to discredit that either, because that's definitely true. But I think it wasn't as like it didn't become this like mainstream in the like wider pop culture.
It was YouTube stream. Like, if you were on YouTube, you could find reading through BookTube. Like,
exactly. And like YouTube was already like niche. So like,
but not everyone was on YouTube. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think for people who were on YouTube, BookTube was that space. And it really brought people together. And I think something with BookTube is you got to have a personal connection with those creators, with booktubers, and you got to get to know them. And everyone had a different thing. Everyone had different books that they loved, and you could go to different creators for different reasons. So it was very creator centered versus I think with BookTok, it's a lot more like now reading is like cool and it's mainstream, and something that people thrive to do is people thrive to read fiction, which is great. But because BookTok is short form content, because it's algorithm dependent, I think it's a lot more I found to be author focused or fandom wide focused. And I feel at least that I've lost that connection with creators on TikTok. I don't know certain creators. I don't look for certain creators specifically. I more just see a lot of content.
Yeah,
I feel that
the shift to create a tapped in audience. What is the word? A dedicated audience when you're a book talker is very different. Like the numbers, I remember this shift when I was working at Amaryllis of like we were trying to understand TikTok as a whole and why, like, you know, even if someone has 1 million followers, like the people don't care about them like they did if you were a YouTuber. Even Instagram was different. Like people cared about the person who started on Instagram more because of the whole stories and getting to know that person, and you could see them in your feed every day. You don't get to necessarily see that person in your feed every day because it's more about going viral. So it's yeah, I mean, you're very correct in looking at it that way because Christine, what were you gonna say?
No, I'm waiting till you guys are done to shift it to the author thing.
Yeah, I mean, because like you followed, like if you were on BookTube, like you followed us from every platform. Like so many people followed us to Instagram and then to Twitter and then BookTok. It is just about finding the next book to read and the trope that you love, or you know, it's interesting, but it's really crazy how books do go viral from just one video. Like I remember when The Life of Addie LaRue went viral from a book talker, but then it kind of just made its waves through. Like it was already kind of viral, but like people read it because of BookTok.
Yeah, I mean that's what used to happen on BookTube too. It's just a different scale.
Yeah.
Like, but one video could make all the difference. But I was just gonna say something. Fuck.
Author.
Yeah, but I had another thought. Okay. Anyway, yeah, and now we're seeing this complete shift in which, like, you know, it's so saturated that authors have to become influencers in order to sell their books in the TikTok era. Like, even people who have never made content before are being pressured to make content. And I mean, it's very obvious when like you can tell an author's very uncomfortable in that role.
I don't mean to laugh.
I mean, but even someone like me who's been doing this like basically my entire life, it's not comfortable to keep pushing your own thing over and over again, because I like to be creative in ways where I'm like doing other things, but like you have to be talking about your book in like a new way that doesn't get boring and annoying, and like I and not like spoil it. And it's just like this whole circus of like promoting yourself and making content. And like, of course there's some book content about my book that I like love to make, but I hate being like, okay, I just did that, now I have to think of another thing that's easy to do that also brings awareness to the book. But what I was going to say was, I think someone in the chat a little while back while you guys were talking about like, how do you feel about how authors use tropes now to promote their books? And I think it's really interesting. I think it's a good way to like let the romance audience know if they're gonna really want to read your book. But I do think that like in the broader spectrum, like not everybody knows those things that might like the book, you know, like they might be like, what are you talking about? Like, what is forced proximity?
Yeah.
That sounds problematic.
I do
yeah,
have
Christy
to...
said it.
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, Christy says it's like what Taylor Swift said about women in music constantly having to reinvent themselves. Like we constantly have to do that on socials, just even as creators, like, because people like, like the thing is when people are telling you how to do social media, they're like, find the thing that people like and just keep doing it. But it's like, no, then people don't like it anymore. Like,
you have to constantly
be
changing it up,
evolving. Yeah,
I do have to thank the Book Talk girlies though for making like me feel okay for loving romance, because I feel like for a while there I kind of like I didn't feel like it was okay, like I had to be reading like more difficult, more interesting, more things to read instead of just like actually really just reading what I've always wanted to read, which is just like romantic fan fiction all the time. So I do have to thank them for that. But I think
we kind of touched on this on...
No, go on.
Sorry, there's a little delay. We kind of touched on it in our romance video, but like no one called anything romance. I just knew I liked contemporary because that had the romance in it. Like I didn't even know romance books. Like we call them contemporary.
I think in the case of like authors having to make content, I only really like a few people who are actually making content. I think like Victoria Aveyard, I really love her stuff. I think she does it very naturally. But I also like, I've read 2 of her books, but I also just like to watch her life. Like I feel like she's more of like a lifestyle creator than someone like promoting her books all the time. Like I think it's just like, here's my life as a writer, and then also I did write these books, but also like here's a night cream that I put on my face. And I think she's very natural at it for people who relate to her in that way. I think she was a good like person to transition into that. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard out there for authors.
I think musicians are going through something similar as well, where like musicians, like recording companies are like, you need to make your song go viral. And they're like, how do I do that? Don't you have like a marketing department? And I'm sure authors feel similarly, where it's like, my job is to write a book. Why is my job also to do a million other things that I didn't sign up for? So I feel like often when I see authors trying to become influencers, I almost like feel empathy for them. I'm like, ooh, this clearly isn't your thing. And this just doesn't feel right. Like it feels inauthentic. And it feels like, you know, it takes a long time to become a creator and build up an audience that trusts you and enjoys your content. And I feel like when authors immediately dive into it, they don't have all of that experience, and it just feels like a giant commercial. Like their account is just a giant commercial.
Yes.
So I become like when I see someone who's an author that I'm not familiar with and I haven't read, and they're trying to be an influencer, I don't become keen to follow them or read their books. But if there's like someone I have been following who writes books and eventually writes books, or I found them before or like while they were writing their book and like things like that, then I'm like, oh, then I'll support them because it was a natural progression. But the other way doesn't feel natural to me.
Yeah, I've found that like I said, like I've been doing this forever, but like if I post something about my book, like people are excited about it the first time, and then the next time they're like, quiet. Like that's what it feels like. You can't do posts that are too close together, or even sometimes like after the initial post, it's like they're just like next. Like, it's like this constant pressure of like, okay, my publishing company wants me to post something, but like my audience is obviously annoyed with me. It's like, where is the line? Where is the balance? There is none. You just have to just keep throwing shit at the wall.
And you can't please everybody, right?
No.
Like either like these people are going to get mad or these people are going to like, there's just no pleasing everybody.
For sure. All right, last thoughts. Anyone have final thoughts on the topic before we move into Mary Kiss Cliff?
I'm very interested to see when and if ACOTAR becomes a TV series and how that is going to affect, I think, the work in itself and the readers, because it could be very good and it could be very bad. Because there's so many people
I feel
who
like
are
the
reading it
readership
right now.
has grown. Yeah, it has grown to a point where, like, I don't think it's going to, like, disappear.
Mm-mm.
It'll just have, like, a sad time, like when the Morgan Sherman show had, like, a little sad time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think also like Sarah J. Maas's books, because they're so popular in mainstream at this point, like I think even if a TV show did poorly, like she would like like her books stand alone on their own so
Yes.
much that her books could never get
They'd
adapted.
continue to thrive.
And she exactly, like whether they were bad adaptations or like it's kind of like Percy Jackson to me. Like they
Yes.
had bad movies for a bit and we all moved on.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think overall on this topic, I guess, like, I think it's crazy how much it's changed in like 10 years and how much has evolved. I think as social media evolves, naturally, the way we talk about books online is going to evolve. And I'm excited to continue to see where it goes. I've been around the whole time, silently watching. So,
All right. And with that, we're going to roll into Mary Kiss Cliff.
Okay, I did it this week, but now I'm not too excited about this. I feel like I've done this before. Have we done this before? This
Christine,
iteration? It's Clary.
I think we might have. Yeah, this feels very familiar to me.
All right, everyone throw out a character.
What about candles, lights,
Okay.
straws?
Mary Kiss Cliff. Candles, straws, or lights?
Okay, so I'm going to marry lights because I love light. Let there be light. It lets me see really well and read. And then I'm going to kiss straws because without the straw, I wouldn't be able to have my matcha without getting really stained teeth. And then candles, I'm going to cliff because if I have light, then what's the point of you just start a fire? Bye.
Bye.
What about you guys?
Zena, do you know what you want to do?
I'm gonna cliff straws because most of them are bad for the environment unless they're metal or reusable ones. So that's what I'm going with. I will kiss candles because I'm not really a big candle person, but I enjoy candles sometimes. And I will also marry light because the place that I live in currently gets no light. And after living here for 3 years, I think it's starting to really affect me. So I plan on moving soon, but I need light, so I will marry light.
Nice.
I am going to cliff lights because I have a lot of sunshine and I have a great apartment with a lot of light. And then I will have an abundance of candles. I'll be living like people did in the 1700s, and that sounds romantic. So I'm gonna marry candles. And I'm gonna kiss straws. That's what I do every single day.
You can come live in my house when your house burns down from your candles. All right, y'all. Well, that is going to be our show today. Thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. If you have any thoughts, feel free to email us at thoseworkingfangirls@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can also follow us on Instagram at thoseworkingfangirls, on TikTok at thoseworkingfangirls, on Twitter at forkfangirlpod. on YouTube at Those Working Fangirls, where we have a video for every single episode, and following all in any of those things is free. So you should hit it up. Chloe Laverson does our socials, and she kills it over there. Zena, thank you so much for supporting the pod, and thank you for coming on today and sharing all your beautiful insight with us. Where can people find you on the internet if you'd like to be found?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I'm on Instagram at Zena Sarah, ZenaSarah. My account is private, but if you're from the podcast, just send me a DM letting me know that you're from the podcast, and I'm happy to connect with you on there.
Nice. Nice. All right, y'all. Well, our podcast is edited by Alex Polis and Jake Needham, with music by Cole Jenkinson, vocals by Heather Traska. We release episodes every single Friday. We are off to go record Fangirl Tea Time, which will be starting in just a few seconds for y'all who are patrons. And we will see you next week. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Christine.
I'm Natasha.
I'm Zena.
Bye.
Bye.